Okay, if you are joining me in this video, it means you have completed your warm-up problems from the Google Doc. So the first one was about taking a 10.5-inch roll of cookie dough and dividing it into half pieces. So make sure that you set your problem up correctly. The cookie dough roll is the thing that we are dividing up, and the size of the pieces is 1/2 inches. So if I'm going to divide fractions, I have to do fractions divided by fractions. So make sure you had an improper fraction here. 10 times 2 is 20, plus 1 more gives you 21 halves, divided by a half. So then you would say to yourself, need to divide? Please don't cry. Just flip the second fraction and multiply. So then I noticed that 2 and 2 would cancel each other out, so it would be 21 over 1, or 21 pieces. Or you could have done numerator times numerator, 42, denominator times denominator, 2. 42 divided by 2 is also 21. For number 2, you needed to subtract the decimals, so we need to line up the decimals. I had an empty space here that I needed to fill with a 0, so I did 6.80 minus 2.46, and you should have gotten 4.34. For number 3, you needed to change these into decimals instead of fractions. It would be a lot easier process. 1/4 is going to be 0.25. We connect 2 quarters. 1 out of 4 quarters is 25 cents. 8/10 is going to be 0.8. And again, I needed another 0 in my placeholder, so I just filled it in with a 0 and then did the subtraction to get 1.45. For number 4, we needed to multiply decimals. What's the exception to the line up the decimal rule? When you multiply, you fools. So hopefully here you ignored the dot, you multiplied it out and add it like you're taught. Count behind the decimal, 3 spaces in your question, 3 spaces in your answer. So those were all reviews for this lesson. So now we're going to go back to start our new lesson. Sorry, I got to adjust my camera here for you. Does not want to adjust. All right, we can work with that. Okay, so today we're going to learn how to divide decimals by decimals. And I have a little story to tell you to go along with why we do what we do. So a long, long, long time ago, when a man slept in caves, hunted saber-toothed tigers, and drew in the dirt with sticks, they tried to divide up their hunt. They had 145.75 pounds of meat that they needed to split into meals that were 2.5 pounds each to see how many families in the tribe could eat off this catch. So they knew the meat was what they were splitting up, so it went in the doghouse, and they knew they needed it into 2.5 pound sizes. But this was really hard to do. In the past, you have done when you have decimals in the dividend here, and we knew that we moved it straight up. And we've been practicing that in our first unit when we were dividing up unit rates and things, so that shouldn't be a surprise to you. But now we have a decimal in the divisor as well. So this made it a little more tricky. So they sat around scratching their heads and thumping their clubs until the fire torch came on. Get it? Instead of the light bulb, because they're cavemen. Fire torch. And Bob, Caveman Bob, I like to call him, remembered something. He remembered that if you do the same thing to both sides of a problem, it stays equal. He remembered moving the decimal in 5th grade by just multiplying a number by 10, 100, or 1,000. So he tried moving the decimal in the divisor to make it a whole number. Swoop. So right here he said swoop. And so basically what he did is he multiplied 2.5 by 10 because he knows that moves the decimal to the right one place. So he had to do the exact same thing to the dividend. Swoop. So technically what he did was multiply 145.75 times 10 as well, and move the decimal one place to the right. And so now he was dealing with a whole number again, and all he had to do was raise the decimal to the roof. So let's use our modern technology to make sure that this method works. So on your Chromebook computer or calculators, or you can get a calculator from the classroom, go ahead and try 2.5, or type into your calculator, 1.45.75 divided by 2.5. Actually, I can see if I can do it here on my calculator. All right, if I have 145.75 divided into 2.5 pieces, I get 58.3, which means I could feed 58 families and have 3/10 of the meat left over for maybe an appetizer or for a special treat for somebody. But let's also try it Dave's way of doing, Bob's way, not Dave, sorry. 1,457.5 divided into groups of 25. So let's try that. 1,400.5 divided into groups of 25. Again, I get 58.3. So it appears that Bob's method does work. And this would be an algorithm that would be nice for us to use. So let's try a few together. It says on your dry erase boards, or you could just use the back of your piece of paper that you did your review on. Let's just do the back of that. So if we had 2.07 divided by 0.9, you would want to first write the original problem. So we would write 2.07 divided into 9/10. So what that tells me is we're going to have 2.07 as our dividend and 0.9 as our divisor. So we want to have a whole number in our divisor, so we want to move the decimal one place to the right. Essentially, we're taking 9/10 and multiplying it by 10. But whatever we do to one number, we have to do the exact same thing to the other number. So we also need to multiply this number by 10 or move the decimal to the right. We like to say swoop, swoop. Then, don't be lazy, rewrite your problem. This, with all the swoops in it and the decimals in the different places, gets very messy, and that's where mistakes happen. So I would take the 2 seconds it takes to write the problem over like this. And remember to leave space so that you have room to write your quotient or your answer to your division problem. Now, this should be a simple division problem that you have done before, where we move the decimal straight up and we start dividing. If you want to push pause and divide this problem on your own and then come back to see if you are correct, that would be a smart choice. All right, if you are back with me, it means that you had divided this problem out, so I'm going to divide it. How many groups of 9 can I make out of 2? 0. How many can I make out of 20? 2. 2 times 9 is 18. Subtract. 20 minus 18 is going to be 2. Bring down the 7. How many groups of 9 can I make out of 27? 3. 9 times 3 is 27. 0. So if I had 2.07 items, or $2.07, and I broke it into groups of 90 cents, I could get 2 whole groups of 90 cents and 3/10 of another group. All right, let's go back to our presentation and try another one. So let's try this one. If we have 8 4/10 divided into 200s. 200s. So on your papers, again, write the original problem, 8.4 divided by 0.02. Oops, I forgot the problem already. 8.4 divided by 0.02. So we have our original problem. 8.4 becomes our dividend. I'm really working on those vocab. And 0.02 becomes our divisor. Now, see if you can remember the steps that you need to go through in order to divide these this problem. If you can't, stay with me and I'll walk you through, and then pause at the point you're able to go on your own. Check back after you finish the problem to make sure that you have done it correctly. All right, if I was going to divide this problem, the first thing I need to do is I need to make this a whole number. In order to make this a whole number, the decimal has to be behind it. So I need to swoop my decimal 2 places. Swoop, swoop. So really, I am multiplying this by 100 because that would move my decimal 2 places to the right. Here, I need to do the exact same thing. I need to swoop it 2 places to the right. Swoop, swoop. Or multiply 8.4 times 100. Now, when I have this empty space, I need to put a 0 in the empty space. Helps to hold the proper place. So again, I'm not going to be lazy. I'm going to rewrite this so that I don't create silly errors. So now I have 840, and I could put the decimal right here so I remember it's there, divided into 2 pieces. Now it should be a pretty simple division problem. How many groups of 2 can I make out of 8? 4. 4 times 2 should be 8. Bring down. How many groups of 2 can I make out of 4? 2. Bring down. Now, do I need to put something here? How many groups of 2 can I make out of 0? Yes, I have to have a number above every number in my dividend. Also, if I think about logic, does this make sense? If I have 840 things and I'm breaking them into groups of 2 and I could only make 42 groups, that doesn't seem very reasonable. So I know how many groups of 2 can I make out of 0? It would be 0. Now, that's a lot more reasonable, 420 groups of 2 items if I had 840 things. Let's also think about the original problem and if this makes sense. If I had $8.40 and I wanted to break it into piles of 2 pennies, do you think I could get 420 groups of 2 pennies? I do think that is reasonable. All right, let's check back into our presentation. All right. So now we have 12 hundredths divided into 15 hundredths. Okay? So what do we notice about this problem that is different than the other division problems from our past? In this case, our dividend is going to be the smaller number that's going to be in the doghouse, and we have a bigger number in the divisor. So what does that tell us about our answer and why? What that tells us is that we will be able to make less than one whole group of 1500, so our answer is going to be a decimal or a part of a number, not a whole number. So now on your papers, let's go ahead and set up this original problem. 0.12 divided into groups of 15 hundredths. So we should have the original problem here. We know this number goes in the doghouse as our dividend. This becomes our divisor. So we have 0.15 divided into, 12 hundredths divided into 15 hundredths. And we should infer and expect our answer to come out less than 1. So go ahead and complete this problem and then go back to Schoology and click on video 2 to check your work and to make sure you are on the right track.